actually killed in Vietnam at 21 years old. And my cousin Sean had actually never had the opportunity to meet his father. The only interaction they had was that my uncle was able to hear Sean cry over the telephone while he was in a hospital in Japan. So Memorial Day is personally important to me. And while we have to observe it in a slightly different way this year, I hope that everybody will take the time to remember all of our fallen heroes who paid the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our country, our liberties, and our freedom. And that's all I have, Mr. Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaczmarek. My report, I just have one thing. Well, two things very quickly as they relate to the budget. The first thing is in June, we have a meeting on June 2nd and June 23rd. Generally, the meeting would have been June 2nd and June 16th. It was initially changed because to allow us time to prepare for the primary election, which is now no longer the case. So at this time, if the council's okay with that, can we move the meeting back to June 16th instead of the 23rd? This way we stick with our regularly scheduled first and third meetings on Tuesday. Council President, are you okay with that? I just want to get a consensus of the council. Again, we just want to change the meeting from June 23rd to June 16th.
Yeah, I just had to turn off the mic. I'm okay with that.
Okay, Ms. Grignani?
That's fine.
Mr. Carriffy?
I'm good.
Ms. McCarthy?
That's good.
Ms. Peterson?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, so I'm going to send out a notice for the meeting. I'll renotice the meeting, and the meeting will be rescheduled to June 16th. Now, with that being said, we are going to be introducing the budget today, and we will then go ahead and adopt the budget on June 16th. The time span statutorily between the introduction and adoption, there has to be 28 days must have passed between the introduction and adoption. So by introducing it today and adopting it on June 16th, we will have complied with the law and we'll have introduced the budget in a timely manner. And that is all I have for today. Thank you, everyone. Moving right along to Township Office.
Hold on,
Yes.
Colette. The governor moved the primary to July 7th.
Okay. That's a good point, Council President. That would be our first meeting in July, so we'll have to reschedule that one.
We may not have to. Let's discuss it. As I understand it, most of us are going to be voting by mail-in ballot. So the workload on you won't be as great. The workload will be on the county clerk.
Correct. So yeah, we may not have to reschedule it. Let's play it by ear, and we'll take it from there. And I just want to just make a note on Resolution 2021-18. It states that the budget was going to be adopted June 9th. That is not the case because, as I stated before, 28 days have to go by between the introduction and adoption. So it will be June 16th. And I also want to state that the council has been emailed a copy of the budget, the state budget. It's in your inbox, and we also have hard copies that I will either put in your mailbox or I can have delivered to your homes over the next couple of days. I'll speak to you guys offline about that. With regards to township offices and committees, does anyone have anything from the council, members of the council?
Not
Not at this time.
Okay. Moving right along to bids. Taken, none to be taken. May 20th, 2020, well drilling and installation services, replacement production, well 1A-R. May 21, 20, construction, development, and testing of replacement test well 20R. May 22nd, 2020, supply of Manic polymer for the wastewater treatment plant. Quotations, proposal, qualifications, none. At this time, before I make a motion for the open public meeting, I just want to state a quick statement for members of the public. You will be given a 5-minute time span to speak. Anyone that is not registered with their name and address will not be allowed to speak. When you do come on to speak, please state your name and address. If you do not, you will be cut off. And we ask that you stick to the 5-minute time limit. With that being said, I will now entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion.
second.
Motion made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call. Mr. Carriffy,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Okay, the floor is now open. Looks like we have Ken Dolsky here. All right, Ken, are you there? Ken,
No, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you, Ken?
Okay, very good. This actually,
Very good. You have the floor is yours, Ken. You have 5 minutes.
thank you. Ken Dolsky, 21 Winfield Drive. First of all, I hope everybody is safe and healthy and coping as well as they possibly can with this rather unique situation. I also want to thank you very much for implementing this conferencing system so that we can now have real-time interactions. I've been following the Parsippany numbers for confirmed cases of COVID-19 on the Morris County website, as I'm certain you all are. As of yesterday, we had 704, and I heard that today it increased by 5 to 709. The average rate of new cases per day for the past 2 weeks was about 5.5. So the increase from yesterday to today is exactly in line with that trend. While this rate is much better than what we saw in April and early May, it does seem to be persistent, and it seems like it is difficult to get it below that level. At the meeting on 4/21, my question about occupational information on these cases was frankly, I think, glossed over by Mr. Kazimark under the broad category of HIPAA restrictions. And I have no feedback if this was discussed on the 5-3. And is to help.
Hey, Ken, I'm sorry to cut you off. If you can just turn down your mic a little bit, it seems like you're echoing and cutting off. I apologize to cut you off.
Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. My intent in bringing this up is to help the town and anybody else, understand as much as we can about what's going on. Under the general principle that in order to solve a problem, you have to see it and you have to understand it. So that's why I'm asking these questions. I understand that the HIPAA laws prevent release of certain information about individuals, and would like to know if this includes occupational or behavioral information about groups of people, not individuals. Clearly, HIPAA allows the release of information on groups such as age, gender, and race. Residents should be told what they can about these cases in terms of types of residents. So, for example, group living, occupations that may be risky, such as healthcare workers, police, fire, and other first responders, and workers in high-volume locations, such as food stores and pharmacies. Other useful information would be behavioral, such as if some of these people are commuting to New York. So my question is, Mr. Kazimark, I think you did state something about the HIPAA law last time. Does HIPAA law prevent disclosing any or all of this information on different types of residences, occupations, and behavior? If not, can any of this information be obtained from the Parsippany Health Department and be used by the township to understand why we still have persistent cases, new cases every day, and also perhaps possibly provided to residents so that they can understand, exactly what's going on, where are things at risk in the town, and where are things, safer. And in general, I would hope the town could use this to help make better decisions as to how it could reopen as quickly and safely as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Kazimark, you there?
Khaled, would you like me to respond on a person-by-person basis, or do you want to wait till everyone speaks and then respond at once? It's your call.
Let's do person-by-person basis, if that's okay with you.
Okay. So Ken, the situation is this. We are provided by our health officer the age, sex, and whether or not the individual who has a confirmed case is in fact a healthcare worker. I can tell you that the number of healthcare workers who have been infected have gone down considerably since the peak, for lack of a better term, of this situation. Beyond that, the town, and when I say the town, I mean our health department, has access to some of those other areas that you discussed in your question. And those statistics are maintained by the health department. They're not released to the mayor, they're not released to me, and they're not released to the public for purposes of contact tracing. That entire process of contact tracing, which I'm sure we've all heard about on the news, is very much in place here in Parsippany. And our health department staff is responsible for looking at those types of profiles or behaviors, as you describe them, in order to implement the contact tracing and contact anyone who those individuals may or may not have exposure to. I would defer to Mr. Lott on the actual HIPAA aspect of it and what can and can't be released. But our health officer, Carlo Delizia, is very well versed on this. And he has indicated to us in the past that age, sex, and whether or not they are or are not a healthcare worker is the limit as to what can be dispensed to the public. So, Jim, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to that.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Kazmark. There's a state director from the State Department of Health that requires the township only to report certain information. The information that you've outlined is what the township is obligated to report. There are a series of other HIPAA exceptions with respect to research and statistical analysis that I don't think are applicable during a pandemic. So I think with the information that the township is releasing is consistent with what the State Department of Health has directed the township to release to the public.
Okay.
If I can add to that, last month I was seeking the same type of information. I wanted to know if Parsippany had any, I use the term hotspots, any place where we have an unusual cluster of cases. And Keith put me on the next day. I was trying to be proactive. If we have hotspots, let's address those now, not wait until everybody catches it. Keith and Carlo got me the next morning, and Carlo assured me that Parsippany has no hotspots, which I found hard to believe, but that's the report I received. The only ones that have this information down to the police department has this information, especially the dispatchers. If the dispatchers have to dispatch ambulance or police or fire to a location, if they know it's a confirmed case of coronavirus, they will warn the volunteers, the responders who go out to that site, so they will know and be prepared when they enter that site.
Thank you, guys.
Through you, Council President, I would just like to point out that there have been a number of times where the state has wavered on the ability for us to access those addresses to the benefit of our first responders. And we have fought back hard as municipal administrators through our county administrator, John Bonani, to make sure that that information continues to be released so that the first responders, if they are called, as the council president indicated, to a COVID positive dwelling, that they are aware of it before they arrive and they can properly suit up in order to best protect themselves as they go in to respond to the call. So we fought that battle, and right now the police department continues to get those addresses in order to alert both our EMS and our police department along with the fire. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Ken. I just want to make a quick comment for the public listening in. If you are looking to speak, there is an icon, should be an icon on your computer where you would raise your hand. At this time, I don't see anyone who has raised their hand except Mr. Dolsky. I'm going to wait about 30 seconds to see if there's anyone else that would like to raise their hand, and then we're going to go ahead and close the public portion.
Can I just make one last comment? I certainly look forward to the day when those numbers on the Morris County website for Parsippany are flat and we have no new cases.
Yeah, I think we all do, Ken. Thank you.
Amen to that, Ken. Amen to that, Ken Dolsky. This is Mayor Soriano.
All right, now at this time, I have not seen anyone else raise their hand. We're going ahead and going to close the public portion. So at this time, I would like to entertain a motion to close the public portion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Carriffy, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call. Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Floor is now closed. Moving right along. Now we're going to the budget portion of this meeting. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and read the ordinance for the budget introduction. So ordinance number 2020